Down. We're going to be giving you all the latest news and our thoughts right after this.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on three. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We're here breaking down 49ers Seahawks this weekend. Seems like it's going to be a rainy bout. But first, got to introduce the one and only Grant Cohn. Grant, how you doing today, my man?
I'm doing all right, man. How you doing?
Good, good. Glad to kick it with you this morning, talk some 49ers, and so let's get into it. It's going to be a rainy game this weekend, something we see the weather. Now, last weekend was also supposed to potentially be a rainy game, didn't obviously end up happening. What are your initial thoughts kind of with the rain? How does it affect the matchup?
It's gonna rain. It's gonna rain a lot. This is gonna be different. I think it's gonna be really, really wet, and it could kind of muddy up the game. Like it could be an equalizer in the sense that it could lead to turnovers. Teams facing each other 3 times. They really know each other. Kyle keeps saying you can't fool each other. It's going to be about physicality and all that. Well, in the rain, it could lead to fumbles and stuff like that. The other thing that maybe is in the Niners' favor is everyone realizes the way to beat the Niners is to sort of find a way to get the ball down the field. Like it's almost easier to throw it down the field than short against the Niners. And I don't know if it's a monsoon, like forget about it. It's just going to be running the ball. So maybe that plays in the Niners' favor. They have so many freaking running backs. They're built to run. They're built to stop the run. And Seattle isn't really built to stop the run. So and the Niners are better than Seattle too. Pretty much in every single way. So that is another thing in the Niners' favor. But the rain will happen.
Yeah, I mean, the rain is going to be a big thing. And like you said, the Seattle Seahawks, they actually have been a fairly good passing attack downfield, and that's where the Niners have struggled recently. They've got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, 2 receivers who have that downfield threat, and Geno Smith has thrown a pretty good deep ball this year. Now, with the rain,
but not against the Niners, though.
Not
against the Niners, though. It's
that
like
is true.
They haven't been able to block long enough to give Geno Smith the confidence to let it loose. We'll see if he can do it in the third try because all he does against the Niners is check it down. Not going to work.
Yeah. But like you said, it might be a running attack. And that's where I think the Niners might be ahead because of the one reason you brought up, their defense. Both teams run the ball fairly well. The 49ers are one of the better running teams in the NFL, but the Seahawks as well. They're top 10. I think they're 7th in the NFL at 4.8 yards per carry. But the difference, the Niners give up only 3.3 yards per carry this year. The Seahawks, they're amongst the league's worst, giving up 4.5 yards per carry. So there's a clear distinction between the two teams. There's not really an elite run defender in the Seahawks on their front 7. And to make matters worse, their top linebacker, Jordan Brooks, is not going to play. He's out for the season with an injury.
Yeah, I mean, the Seahawks shouldn't win this game. They shouldn't even be in the playoffs. They're supposed to be the worst team in the league. They're a year ahead of schedule. There's no pressure on them. The Niners should win. I mean, there's nothing you could point to that says Seattle should win this game. But except for it's going to rain, and it's the third time they face each other this year, and Pete Carroll is a damn good coach, frankly. You could say he's the coach of the year with what he's done with Geno Smith. Nothing against Geno, but like no one knew that Geno could do any of this until Pete Carroll made it happen.
Yeah.
So, you got in that sense, it might be the team the Niners like least wanted to face in the first round. Like, Matt LaFleur, Kyle owns him. Brian Daboll, like that team isn't ready, and he's never faced Kyle. Pete's faced Kyle a lot of times. Doesn't mean he's going to do any better, but he might have a really good game plan. He might outcoach Kyle, but the Niners are so much better than the Seahawks, it might not matter.
Yeah, that's true. And he talked about Matt LaFleur. He talked about Brian Daboll. 49ers, the way that they faced the Seahawks was very interesting. The Lions, Seahawks, and Packers all could have got the 7th seed this week. The Seahawks won, eliminating the Lions, but then the Lions eliminated the Packers, allowing the Seahawks, the team that eliminated them, to get back in the playoffs. Would this be your preferred matchup over those two teams, or who did you prefer of the 3?
Well, I'm not a Niner fan, so I'm not rooting for an easy
In
path
terms
for the
of
49ers. But I know what you mean.
yeah,
I think in retrospect, like the Packers are such an interesting team. It's like when they're underdogs, you don't really want to face them. But when they're supposed to win a game, oh, you want to face them. At home against Detroit, like, yeah, they're going to lose that game because everyone thought they'd win and they'd come out with no energy and just suck. And one of their best players gets ejected for something stupid. Yeah, that's the Packers. Good job, Matt LaFleur. I guess you'd be nervous about the Packers as a 7 seed where everyone's picking the Niners and there's no pressure on Aaron Rodgers because he's a freaking head case. And anytime people pick him to win big games in his career, he loses them. The one time he won a Super Bowl, he was the 6th seed running the table as like a 25-year-old quarterback on the road, if you remember that. So, yeah,
yeah.
I guess the Packers are kind of tricky like that. But, yeah, I mean, Kyle would outcoach Matt LaFleur. He would. And so would D'Amico. That's why I feel like the Niners probably weren't super juiced to get Seattle.
That's interesting because coming into the playoffs, the Packers were the hottest team of the three. Maybe the Lions and the Packers were equally as hot, but the Packers had come into the game winning 4 straight against, and then when they were facing the Lions, they were coming in hot with a good offense, a good defense, and obviously a quarterback playing a little better than he was at the beginning of the year when he wasn't playing as well. But
isn't there something soft and poorly coached about the Packers? I mean, in every big game we see, there's something soft about them. In Detroit, they look like the Seahawks, a really tough, well-coached team that punches above its weight and like really has no business having a winning record or being as good as they are. That's what I see from Detroit and Seattle.
I do agree. That's kind of what I was going to say in that they got punched in the mouth against the Detroit Lions. You're not supposed to be outscored. I mean, you're not supposed to not score that much against the Detroit Lions. That team is not a good defense, similar to the Seattle Seahawks. Both teams revolve around their offenses, and when their offenses can't produce elite numbers, that's when they've generally been losing. But they held the Packers, a team that put 41 up on the Minnesota Vikings. We'll talk about them later.
Yeah.
They held them to 16 points. That's a pretty good performance and forced multiple turnovers out of Aaron Rodgers. So to me, I think I would have preferred, I think the Seahawks over the Packers. I think the easiest matchup of the three, I think you can debate against the Seahawks and the Lions. I personally would go with the Seahawks just because I think that their offense is a little less prolific and a little less boomer bust. I think that that's what makes the Lions a little more of a dangerous matchup, although I think the Seahawks might be a little bit of a better team. Now, if I'm talking pure entertainment, because I want to see what the best matchup is, I thought it would be the Packers. And that's why I thought that I wouldn't have minded if the Packers made the playoffs, because that provides you with the best team going against the 49ers. And it also gives you a good test. If the 49ers can defeat the Packers on a 5-game winning streak with the way that they've been playing going into the playoffs, it's a good indication of how Brock Purdy could be in the playoffs when he's never faced a test like that before.
I just feel like the Niners aren't scared of Jared Goff. Jared Goff had a good season, but it's Jared Goff, and the Niners have faced him a lot of times, and he can't do the things that are required to beat the Niners defense, which is like scramble out of the pocket, get the ball down the field. I think Geno can do those things. I think he's learning that he has to do those things against the 49ers to have a chance. He didn't really do very much of that until the end, but he did have some nice scrambles in the second game, and I think if the Seahawks have been paying attention, they're seeing that every opponent the Niners have faced the last 4 games have been throwing the ball down the field like it's the only thing they can do. I think they might get the picture of what you have to do to beat the 49ers defense. And really, I mean, like the Niners defense is all about their pass rush. If you can neutralize that to an extent, you got a chance. And the Seahawks haven't been able to do that. But it'll be interesting. It seems like the best thing to do is to go max protect, have a lot of people blocking, 7, and just take shots at Diamador. Try to stay away from Gibson. Take shots at Hufanga. Now, it helps if you have a really great wide receiver, but they do have DK, who's physically way bigger than Diamador. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they tried that in the last game and it didn't work. So, it's easier said than done.
I agree. And I think that this is a good transition to what the main concerns could be for the 49ers in this game. Because, let's be honest, there probably aren't that many. They're 10-point favorites for a reason, which is the biggest of the entire wild card matchup or wild card weekend. But, like you said, There are some concerns with the 49ers, especially in their secondary. One thing I'm curious to see is whether Charvarius Ward really lines up against DK Metcalf the entire game. Lockett will interchange between the slot and the outside. I think he was 50-50 in both the games this year. So he'll interchange between the other corner and Jimmy Ward. But I wonder if Charvarius Ward, with the way that he played DK Metcalf last time, the way he got in his head and really neutralized DK Metcalf.
It shadowed him.
The 49ers, will the 49ers allow him to shadow him again?
I think if they did it once and it worked, why wouldn't you do it twice? You can't let the Seahawks get Metcalf on Lenore. It's just such a physical mismatch, and it's what they want. You can't let them get it. I mean, they're going to get it sometimes, but as little as possible, especially not on big passing downs, big moments in the game. You got to put Ward on DK. But still, like, Tyler Lockett's really good. He's just smaller, but he can go deep. I mean, maybe he's not like going to win 50-50 balls over Lenore like DK Metcalf would, but still, he can just flat out beat Lenore. They got to be careful with that. Especially, like, Lockett's really tough on the scramble drill, and that's how Russell Wilson would get him. Just break the pocket, extend the play, find Tyler Lockett. He's open. But I don't know. Apparently, Gino's been doing this. I haven't watched a ton of the Seahawks this year. I've just watched him against the Niners, and he doesn't do a lot of stuff. Like, he plays kind of timid against the Niners. Like, he needs to not do that. I don't know if he has. Yeah.
What are some other concerns for you for the 49ers?
Their pass protection. It hasn't been great. Is Banks going to play with Brunskill in there? It's like him and Trent Williams really weren't communicating well on that stunt. Burford's been getting beat. McGlinchey, I mean, he's been playing better, I guess, recently, but I'm always nervous about him. So it seems like good defensive coordinators have been able to scheme up pressure, and the Niners haven't necessarily picked it up well the last few weeks. It's just that they've been running the ball so well and playing good defense and getting big leads that the pressure hasn't really been able to keep, like, people haven't been able to keep calling it. But I wonder if Pete Carroll has seen something and can, confuse it. First of all, let's talk about Brock Purdy. It's his first playoff game. He's going against one of the best defensive coaches in the league. Last time they faced him, they baited Brock Purdy in an interception down the field. He didn't see the underneath defender dropping. So what is going to happen there with Brock? Like, is Pete Carroll going to outsmart him? This is the first coach to see Brock twice. Stuff like that. Protection and Brock, I would have to say.
I think you nailed all three. So 2 weeks ago, I kind of wrote what are my three main concerns going into the playoffs. One was the secondary, and I even went further and said secondary, especially when Charvarius Ward exits the game. There have been 5 instances this year where Charvarius Ward has exited the game in the middle of a game for a period of time. And you see exactly what what opposing teams do. They go exactly at Lenore, or they go exactly at whoever the guy is that comes in. Charvarius Ward, Jenkins, whoever it might be. Ward exited the game again this week, and it's a freak thing, right? It's 10 plays, but a series of 10 plays can change the outcome of a playoff game.
Right.
Ward has never missed a game, but he's exited the game a good amount. That's a concern to me, especially when you know how the 49ers secondary has been playing as of late. I also agree with the offensive line thing. And the way that I think, I don't know if it's more pass protection or run blocking, because I think the offensive line is good at run blocking, but I also think they struggle to move the offensive line in run blocking in terms of in the power scheme. They struggle to move defenders back. They're very good in their zone blocking scheme and filling in the gaps and filling in where they're supposed to, which creates these chunk plays. But they also struggle in the power blocking scheme to generate more. And that's why you see these 2 or 3 yard runs at max from Christian McCaffrey, because he's trying to create, but his archetype is not really built for that. And if you continue to play Elijah Mitchell, that might get him hurt more. And so to me,
really, it's what Jordan Mason's built for. You see him call a lot of those plays for Jordan Mason. It's just him powering through for yards after contact.
Exactly. But to me, the reason I could be worried about the offensive line, they haven't played many very strong teams on at least strong defensive lines. And I'm not going to fault them for that. You play who you play. But they haven't played many very good teams. And when you look at the playoffs, the Cowboys have a good one. The Eagles have a good one. There are good teams that have very good defensive lines.
How about Buffalo? I mean, Kansas City has a good one. I mean, Kansas City's defensive line overwhelms the Niners because it's big. It's big. Chris Jones is like the opposite of Aaron Donald. The Niners handle Aaron Donald because he's small and quick, and the Niners are small and quick. But Chris Jones he's not just big. He's like Buckner and like meaner than Buckner. I mean, he's like a combination of Buckner and Armstead. He's so good. So good. Yeah.
Agreed. And in the final stretch of the year, the three teams they faced with good defensive lines, the Saints, the Dolphins, and the Commanders. Now, the 49ers won all three games. The similarity, though, they ran under 4 yards per carry in each of those games.
Yeah.
And also gave up 8 sacks during that 3-game stretch. So something just to think about. Obviously,
and Seattle's not going to be the team that shuts down the Niners' run defense unless Pete's got something up his sleeve. But there could, like, Philly absolutely could just by winning the trenches.
Yeah, I don't think Seattle necessarily is the team, but when you look at the divisional round, that's where you start to get worried because you face one of those teams with a strong defensive line.
Right. I mean, you got to wonder, has Brock Purdy faced a great defense yet? No.
I don't know. I think Commanders could potentially be up there, maybe top 10, but has he faced a top 3?
He's going to face a better defense than that, though, if he's going to win the Super Bowl. He's going to have to face one better than that, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But let's stay optimistic right now. So why can the 49ers win this matchup?
Oh, this one against the Seahawks?
Yeah, against the Seahawks.
Because they're better than the Seahawks. Flat out. Because, I mean, they can just impose their will. They can run. They ran for 170 in the last game. They can run for 200 yards. They could probably sack Geno Smith 4 or 5 times. That's the game right there. And that's just like Pete Carroll said it this week. He said that the Niners don't really try to fool you on defense and they don't bring a lot of pressure. They're really good. They just show you the coverage they're going to play. Yeah. They rush 4, and it's like, we're better than you. We're better than you. Like, force us to disguise our coverage or bring pressure. Why would we do tricky stuff like that when we can just be as simple as possible and kick your ass? I mean, that's the Niners' philosophy on defense. And they have been getting exposed a little bit the last few weeks. But it kind of feels to me like the Niners were just like, you know what, we clinched. We're going to – because there were games where their pass rush wasn't there. Their pass rush was kind of absent in those until like the second half of the Cardinals game. Then they turned it up and really knocked around David Blau. But I have a feeling that their pass rush is going to be supercharged against the Seahawks, and Geno Smith's going to have a tough time. Yeah.
To me, with the pass rush, the main thing is finishing. Like, for the 49ers, in that Jarrett Stidham game, you would have thought Jarrett Stidham really, like, the 49ers couldn't get to George Stidham. That's wrong, and that's true. Jarrett Stidham got pressured, I think, 26 times in that game. That's phenomenal by the 49ers. How many sacks, though, did that 26 pressures result to? 0. That cannot be happening. You need to get to the quarterback, but you also need to finish. That's something.
And a lot of times those pressures create scramble lanes that lead to first down. So pressures aren't always like the end all be all. You know, if you're pressuring the quarterback but running past him and giving up a first down, like, I don't know, like, maybe the pressure wasn't great. Maybe you should just maintain your gap and I don't know. I'm just saying. But hold on.
No, I think
we're talking pass rush, right?
Yeah.
We're talking pass rush, right? Well, part of the problem with the pass rush is it's very Nick Bosa dependent. And he's been super consistent all year, obviously. But if there's a game where he just doesn't have it, who's stepping up? So far, it hasn't been Armstead this year. Maybe, I mean, he always could. He always has it in him to be like the best player on the field, but he had 0 sacks this year. Amenahu, maybe. Jordan Willis starting to look really good, but like there isn't that second pass rusher on the team that you feel super confident about showing up every game.
Yeah, I don't know. So to me, I think it is Amenahu. When you look at the statistics, he's the guy who really shows out in terms of pass rush win rate. He's actually top 10 in the NFL in pass rush win rate it's about 22%. The only thing is, well, he showcased that without Nick Bosa. In the one game he had without Nick Bosa, the team did not do well. Amenahu, I think the team only had 10 pressures in that one game way back, but they only had 10 pressures. What was it? The Atlanta Falcons without Nick Bosa. And that's a big deal. 10 pressures going from 26 to 10. It changes the outlook of your team. And I think Amenahu in one-on-one situations is great. Armstead can also do his thing in one-on-one situations, but
still,
right.
though, Amenahu, I mean, 4.5 sacks in 17 games with that win rate, you'd think he'd play more. Why do you think he doesn't play more?
That's a good question.
I got a theory. I think he's pretty bad against the run.
He is.
I think he's pretty bad against the run, and I think he's almost like when he's in, you want to run at him because he doesn't set the edge or whatever. So I'm just saying, I think there's a reason he's not in there more. But he is a good player. Like, he's a hell of a pass rush, especially from the interior. He even looks better than Arden Key last year.
He is better than RG.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say.
We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
You know,
how
he's
his contract
25.
is.
He's young. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. 25.
I knew
Yep.
only because we traded for him on his rookie deal. Like, that's why he's making cheap dirt this year, because he's on his rookie deal still.
You'd think like, man, he'd be at 260. He'd be a monster like defensive end, but really he's not a good run defender. So you better off just playing him in passing downs and put him in the interior and let him go. He's good at that for sure. It'd be nice if Armstead would pick it up, because again, he has the ability to dominate games. We've seen him do it. He only does it a few times a year. He hasn't really dominated a game yet. Hey, man, it doesn't even have to be this one. Have it be the Super Bowl. But yeah, Armstead needs to, I think at some point needs to like be the guy that everyone says he is.
I think Armstead was really promising week 16. Week 16, in my opinion, was his best game that he put on tape. But then he followed it up with potentially his worst game in week 17. He had 1 pressure and 33 pass rush snaps. That's really not that great. And I understand he gets double teamed a lot. But
And
with
he's
the
been
way the
hurt,
49ers,
and maybe he's pacing himself, whatever. But yeah, it's time.
But then again, this is the playoffs. This is a great opponent for you to start getting it getting it started. But I think Armstead can fix it around, like in terms of his impact. He's obviously going to be a good run defender.
He's such a good athlete. Real quick, a little story about how good of an athlete Eric Armstead is. I was interviewing a guy who is a Falcons podcaster, used to work for Scout.com, used to do the rankings for Scout.com, and was scouting Eric Armstead in high school, and they were going to make him the #1 recruit in the nation if he was an offensive tackle. But he wanted to play defense. He would have been the #1 recruit in the nation, regardless of position, if he were an offensive tackle. That's how good of a freaking athlete he was. And he went to Oregon, played D tackle and basketball. Hell of an athlete.
Yeah,
hell of an athlete.
That he is. Yeah. That he is.
Yeah.
But he's gonna be that force on the interior. Him with or without Kinlaw, he's going to be that force on the interior. I do think that this is the time where Armstead really is going to start to break out the playoffs. We'll see if that comes true.
Yeah, because he's always good against the run. I'm not trying to say like he's a bad player. He's a really good player. He's a really good player, but he has the ability to be an impact player more than someone who's solid and does his job. He has the ability to take over games. We've seen him do it, and he's not going to need to do that this week. I don't think, but eventually he might. They might need him, and they pay him too. So I think if he's like pacing himself to do it the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl, then great, wonderful.
Hey, if that happens, that happens.
Yeah.
Yep. I think even last year, remember in the playoffs, Armstead went off. I remember he had 6 sacks or something in his last 4 games.
But he didn't do anything in the NFC Championship game, and then 3 years ago he didn't do anything in the Super Bowl. So if he needs to finish on a hot, finish well, and I think that's what he's building up to. I think that's his plan.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll
That's what
see.
he's doing.
We got a super chat from our guy Ryan Hensley talking about defensive coordinator. What do you think about Lovie Smith as a defensive coordinator next year?
I like Lovie Smith. He's a really good coach. I'm going to say this. This is one thing that I 100% trust. I 100% trust Kyle Shanahan on. Whoever he picks, I'm not questioning it. If there's one thing I trust him on above anything, it's his ability to evaluate coaches. He hired Robert Saleh, never heard of him, made fun of the hire. 2 years later, I'm eating my words. They promote D'Amico. I'm like, man, this is a Super Bowl team. Don't you want someone with some experience? No. Like, whoever Kyle picks, I'm cool with. Whoever. If it's someone I've never heard of, I'm like, all right, he must be good. Because I think that's something Kyle knows. Like, he grew up around coaches. He was born to be a coach. He may think that he's a wide receiver at heart. He's just a coach's coach. I think he knows. So yeah, Lovie Smith is cool though. If he picks Lovie, I love Lovie.
Kyle's just good at developing, like understanding and developing coaches. That's something that's been clear the entirety of his regime. You said it with the defensive coordinators, not picking just one, but 2 really good defensive coordinators, and really all the promotions. Brian Greasy this year was a phenomenal hire when a lot of people questioned it.
I made fun of that.
No coaching experience.
I made fun of that. Yeah.
So Grant, I think the theory is you got to make fun of the coaching hire, and then it'll turn out good.
Again, this is all the process of quality control. People try to pull receipts on me. I am not trying to be a fortune teller. I am trying to push the right motivational buttons, and clearly I do, so it's okay.
Yeah, but Lovie Smith, here's what I'll say. I would be fine with it, but I think there are better options. My #1 guy, if we're looking for an external guy that has experience, is Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz runs a pretty solid defense, a good 4-3 defense, and I think he's just a little more little less predictable than Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith is your traditional Tampa 2 4-3 defense guy. I
That's
think,
true.
though, the 49ers have thrived on masking their issues defensively, such as guys like Diamondo Lenore at times, such as, well, last year, their entire secondary at times. And I think they do a good job of that. And that's why I want something a little less predictable. I want someone who is able to use more stunts, someone who's able to kind of be more creative
Sure.
with his defensive approach. I think that that's what D'Amico Ryans excels at. And so that's where I think Jim Schwartz might be my number one guy. But I wouldn't mind Lovie Smith, obviously, an esteemed defensive coordinator.
Jim Schwartz is interesting too because he's worked with Kosaric before for a long
Correct.
time. That's a good
Yeah,
call.
his first,
That's a really
all
good
of his
call.
5 years in Detroit. All of his 5 years.
He's a wide 9 guy. So it could
Exactly.
work. The only thing I would say is I just don't see Kyle Shanahan hiring a defensive coordinator who does he want a guy with experience? He didn't the last two
That's
times.
very fact. That's
The
very
last
true.
2 times he hired guys who had no experience, and I think Kyle Shanahan likes hiring people who are his age or a little bit younger and inexperienced, and him being like, I can tell that he's a good coach. I mean, and plus you don't know about him. Also, if you have an older guy on the staff, he has his own ideas. There might be more conflict. I don't know. I know there were rumors that they wanted Vic Fangio, but it doesn't sound like they're going to get Vic Fangio. It sounds like he's going to go with Sean Payton. I would bet on – I also don't think Kyle wants to change the philosophy of the defense. I don't think he wants someone coming in with his own ideas saying we should do this, this, and this. It's like, man, this defense has been doing one thing for a while, and it works. Why would you change it? So I feel like it might be someone on the staff already. They might be – I keep going back to what's the dude's name? The guy in secondary, Corey Unlin.
Okay.
Just because he's the pass game coordinator right now, which means he's like one step away from being a coordinator. He was a coordinator in Detroit. He's here. He's like working underneath D'Amico right now. He knows what D'Amico does. That just seems like kind of how the Niners do business. But look, the secondary isn't great, so I don't know. Maybe Kyle would go in a different direction. I don't know.
Yeah.
Although, really, you can't fault Corey Unlin for Diamondo not having ball skills. I'm sorry.
Nah, I think Corey Unlin could be a guy. I think my number one internal guy would be Johnny Holland. I still think that
Johnny Holland.
In a way,
Love
D'Amico
Johnny
Ryans, you go in the way of D'Amico Ryans' footsteps. He's the new linebackers coach. He's been it since Ryans was promoted. And I think Holland has done a very good job, not only with development, but
So
it seems
good.
also with in terms of the personality, what you see from the linebackers, it seems like every single one comes to play. And I think you need that type of person, the guy who's driving those type of personalities. I think you need that type of person at the helm. That's why I would not mind if Johnny Holland was the guy. And the good thing is Holland is so under the radar, you likely get him for at least 2 years. If he pans out, you're going to get him at least 2 years as your defensive coordinator, providing some stability.
Here's what I think about Holland. Super underrated coach, probably the best linebacker coach in the league. He is as good or better than Chris Kosaric. Just doesn't get the love. But I mean, look at the guys they've developed. You know, I mean, they're a freaking linebacker factory, and they have the best linebackers in the league. He deserves more credit. But I'm looking at his coaching career, and I've never talked to him about this. I don't even know if he would want to be a coordinator. There's some coaches, of course he would. It would come with a big time pay raise. I'm sure he'd love to. Although I asked Chris Kosaric if he wants to be a coordinator, and he's flat out said no. He's like, no, I don't want to look at coverages. I just want to do my job. So maybe Johnny Holland is the best linebacker coach. He's good on details. I don't know. I don't want to speak for him. I don't know him that well. But sometimes they're big picture people, and sometimes they're little detail people. And Chris Kosaric will tell you he's a little detail person. He wants to look at the get off, who's getting off the ball fastest, all that, the little details of making good pass rushers better. Some people want to look at the big picture of game planning and coverages and all that, how it ties together. I don't know if that's his skill set, but out of respect to Johnny, I'm not going to say one way or another because I don't know. But Kyle will know. So I think Kyle has certain people on his staff that he says he's a big picture guy. I want to mentor him because he's going to go through the ranks. Or this guy is the best freaking linebacker coach. I want to keep him forever. Bobby Turner, best running back coach in the world, but probably not going to be. Probably doesn't have aspirations to be an OC. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know where Johnny Holland falls, but I kind of look at there's like two classes of coaches on the Niners.
I think I get what you mean. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
At
least how Kyle thinks of him. Sorry. Yeah.
Nah, I think that's fair, and it is true. Some of the guys, Kosarek will not be a coordinator. It seems Kosarek's going to be in the role that he wants to be. Yeah. The one last name that I'll just throw out just for fun, because I think that he could be a guy, an under the radar guy, is going to be pass game coordinator over there in Baltimore, Chris Hewitt. I think he's one of the up and coming guys. He's been with Baltimore for like 7 years. He's their defensive back coach for a while, and then he became their pass defense coordinator. I think that could help the 49ers having a guy who understands the value of the secondary, because that's where the 49ers normally have had to mask their identity. So that's where I'll look for as well if we were looking at external and you wanted a guy with no coordinator experience.
Also, I'm available. I could do it. I think so. I mean, I think I could call. I could say, hey, Nick Bosa, sack the quarterback. I'm just kidding. Nick, do your thing. Cover 3, rushing 4.
The better idea, I think Mariah says it here. Just tell them they're washed and they'll all perform.
Yeah, just go in every day and just just be so mean. Yeah, just like Kyle. Just kidding. Did Mike LaFleur get fired?
So one report said he's fired. 8 reports say that that's not true.
No.
So at the moment, it looks like he is. They don't know. But at the moment, no announcement has been made that Mike LaFleur is fired. That would be an interesting addition, though, if Mike LaFleur came back.
Yeah,
it essentially be you ship one
familiar
guy
face.
Out.
Yeah,
like
got some experience.
Kubiak might not go. Kubiak might go to their OC, Clint Kubiak, and we get LaFleur back. Just flip.
Yeah, I don't know what he would. He'd need a new job though, because Bobby Slowick took his job, pass game coordinator. He could go be the run game coordinator. He could come be the run game coordinator. He could do something. Yeah, I'm sure he would. Yeah.
Special. What do you call it? Quality control. Just go back to quality control.
Yeah. Start back from the bottom, man.
I know you always have not necessarily hot takes, but you're bold with your opinion. A lot of people say that defense has been good this year. A lot of people say the defense has been number 1, which it has in terms of yards per game and certain statistics. What side of the ball do you think is better, though, for the 49ers right now?
It's a tough one, man. Because statistically, it's the offense. Obviously, statistically, it's the offense. But is that just a small sample size? Is it because the defense let off the gas a little bit and tried to pace itself at the end? It could be. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. But to me, right now, the issue with the offensive line isn't great. But really, the biggest issue with the offense forever was the quarterback wasn't good enough. He was too limited. And the Niners could do a lot with him, but they just weren't good enough, and they couldn't score enough points. And that was the problem. Now they don't have that problem anymore. Like I don't know if Brock Purdy is a franchise quarterback or if he's a Hall of Fame quarterback or whatever he is. But right now with him, the offense is like scoring 30 points like without trying. And the defense all of a sudden is showing like if the pass rush isn't at its best, there are problems deep. And without Greenlaw, they are not as good as they are with Greenlaw. So, I think right now the offense is better, and at least that's a good thing because it seems like this is the kind of team where both units are really good right now.
Right.
And they might be winning playoff games. Like basically, the typical 49ers score down the stretch this season was the Niners win 37-13, 14. I mean, that's 38-14. They kicked. I'm not going to curse on your channel, but they're really destroying teams, and that could just keep happening because it looks like this is a golden opportunity for the Niners to win a Super Bowl. There's really no dominant team in the NFC right now if it ain't them, because Philly looks like they peaked already, and so it's like a free ride to the Super Bowl. It seems like, and then you got the Chiefs again or Buffalo. Like you're always going to have to go through one of those guys. So this is it. This is a great opportunity to do it. You got the offense and the defense right now.
Yeah.
And next year, maybe Brock Purdy gets figured out and it's not the same. Right now, this is like the Nick Foles. You're rolling. Teams are on their heels. They don't really know what to do. Should we stop the run? No, that's not going to work. I mean, he's going to play action you to death. What do you do to stop? Don't know. So this is it.
I agree. I think it's a tough one. I think the 49ers are probably a top 5 offense. I don't know if they're number 1 right now. I think I'd still go with the consistency of Kansas City, Buffalo, and maybe even Philly over the entirety of the year, because the 49ers obviously have been great, the last maybe 8 games, maybe 9 games, if you were talking about it offensively, essentially since Christian McCaffrey came in.
Yeah.
But I think you do have to still ride the hot hand. You've got to go with the team that's better right now in the playoffs. Maybe the defense is just tailing off at the beginning of towards the end of the season because they're getting ready for the playoffs. But right now, the offense is getting as good as it's ever been, while the defense is not. They're getting a little worse.
Leaking away a little bit.
Yeah, they're leaking a
Does
little.
it remind you of 2012 a little bit? Like when Harbaugh was here, the defense was way better, especially when Alex Smith was the quarterback. But then Smith got hurt,
You saw this
and
rise.
Justin Smith got hurt, and Kaepernick came in, and it wasn't that he was necessarily way better than Alex Smith, but he was new, and teams didn't really know what to do yet, and the offense took off, and the defense kind of fell back, and they eventually lost the Super Bowl 34-31.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that could be what happens in this game, where I'm a little concerned that where they get deep in the playoffs and all of a sudden they go against an opponent that comes out doing what the Ravens did to the Niners in that game. Bombs away at Chris Culliver and Carlos Rogers right now. Right now, no respect for your secondary. And it worked for the Ravens in that game. That's 10 years ago. But, I mean, the Niners are built the same way still. It's the same scouts. It's the same philosophy. Front seven. Do the best you can in the secondary. And now Deommodore Lenoir's playing like Chris Culliver, at least. Like, he's in great position, but he didn't make the play. So I'm a little concerned about that.
And the one thing that scares me going to what you just said about the bombs away kind of strategy for opposing teams, I don't know. I mean, the Raiders game is the Raiders game, but I don't know if the 49ers can win a shootout against a good defense. That's something that I don't know. Teams can have a shootout against the 49ers. Teams are going to be able to throw deep because guess what? The teams that we've mentioned, the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs. I won't put Buffalo. I don't think their offensive line is as good. But those,
but Josh Allen can create it. Josh Allen can buy time.
We saw,
and he's got the arm.
Exactly.
Josh Allen is not going to dink and dunk against the freaking 49ers. If he's going down swinging.
So Buffalo and then Kansas City. I'm not going to put Minnesota in there. I don't care about Minnesota.
Maybe Cincinnati, although the Niners.
Maybe
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, you'd put in there.
Their offensive line's better this year.
Yeah, those are the five teams where I think their offensive line can sustain good enough for deep passes to be thrown. And that is an issue for the 49ers because if you have Deommodore Lenoir and Talanoa Hufanga on the same side of the football field, you might see a coverage bust a game. A coverage bust leads to more offense being scored. And remember, deep plays...
You can't have them on the same side of the field. Gibson has to be over the top of Lenoir at all times. Was that I want to go back and look at that might have been the adjustment. Like, okay, if you're going to go deep at Lenoir, we're putting Gibson right there. That's the smart thing to do. Because Gibson's all over that.
Yeah. And the issue is also like when we don't mean deep plays by 75-yard touchdowns. What I mean is when you have a deep play, if it's a 30-yard gain, if you have multiple 30-yard gains, that significantly decreases the amount of yards you need to get. This, to me, is a formula, a yards per play formula.
That's like three first downs right there.
Exactly.
3 first downs.
That allows that offense not have to face this defense for 3 consecutive first down drives.
Exactly.
Which means that they might not be able to tire. They might not tire out.
Right.
They might not.
Which is why it's better to take shots than to try to work your way down methodically. It's too hard to work your way down methodically. It's painful. Dre Greenlaw will mess you up. Nick Bosa will wreck your play. Go deep. Go deep. Yeah.
And if we're being honest, right now, I still don't trust Brock Purdy deep down the field. I just don't know how that arm strength is going to hold up against cornerbacks that are going to be in stride. Now, what I do trust is Kyle Shanahan to scheme open those receivers, and then that's where I trust Brock Purdy. Oh, that receiver's open. I have the aggressiveness. I'm gonna throw that thing downfield. But
what makes me nervous, though, is if Kyle does the thing that he did with Jimmy in the playoffs, where Jimmy has a bad throw or a shaky half, and Kyle's like, I don't trust you anymore. I'm going to win this game in spite of you. You got to trust your quarterback to win a Super Bowl. And if Kyle all of a sudden decides, I don't trust Brock anymore, I mean, the Niners aren't going to win the Super Bowl. So he has to trust the kid.
And this is the year where Kyle Shanahan, in my opinion, is going to be tested the most. So far, he's passed with flying colors. He's potentially the coach of the year, if not the coach of the year. He's passed. He's done a great job.
And if it ain't him, it might be Pete Carroll, the guy he's facing this year. I'm saying what he did with Gino, they're supposed to be the worst team in the league. Just saying.
That's true. That's true. But the thing about Kyle here, Kyle understands right now that this team is better in the air. They're a better team in the air. That's how they've worked. They've been a phenomenal running back.
Their running back is a better receiver than a running back. And he's a good running back.
Why they're the best team in the air. And Kyle has to understand this is different than the years past. Playoffs is physical. You need to be able to run the football. We'll talk about Elijah Mitchell in a little bit. You need to be able to run the football.
They're 5 deep at running back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to throw the football this year. It's not going to be one of those 8 passing attempt games. You're going to have to throw the football this year because that's the way your offense works. And that's where I wonder, is Kyle Shanahan going to have the aggressive, or at least the willingness to execute the game plan as he's done the past 10 weeks? Or is that game plan going to change due to the nature of the game?
Because to Doug Peterson's credit, a few years ago when he had that run with Nick Foles, he didn't lose his nerve in the playoffs. Like, oh, I got Nick Foles. This is a big game, so let me just hand off 50 times. Like, no, they had like a formula that they used that worked for Nick, and they rode it the whole way, and they were scoring big points. They put up how many points in the Super Bowl to beat Brady? Like 38, something like that. I mean, yeah, that's what Kyle has to. You have to really trust him and lean into this, and not be like, oh, Brock almost threw a pick. Shut it down, because that's what he did with Jimmy, and maybe it was the right call, but. I don't think you can win a Super Bowl that way.
Right. I wonder, though, to end this kind of topic about offense or defense, I wonder how the offense plays in the playoffs when down. We've only seen that once, right? Against the Las Vegas Raiders with Brock Purdy. Great. It was a good job. I think Purdy didn't do very good in that game. I thought it was probably one of his worst games put on film in terms of missed opportunities. Yeah. But you've also got to take the good with the bad. Purdy led them back. Purdy got them into,
twice.
He got them into scoring position twice and led them back for the drive. Obviously, Robbie Gould missed one of those kicks. The other one was a touchdown, but he led them back.
There's something about quarterbacks, like you can kind of feel their confidence or anxiety through the television screen or when you're watching. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can kind of feel their emotional level. And with Brock, it feels like his heart rate hasn't really risen yet. He's been very calm. Mm-hmm. In ways that you don't like. Even like Jimmy's not calm like that. Jimmy, he'll plant himself in like when he gets hit a few times, all of a sudden he's skittish. He wants to stand in one spot and look pretty and basically not have to move and keep his jersey clean. But there are times when he looks, you can feel the anxiety, and that's most quarterbacks. I feel like Geno's that way when he plays the Niners. He's like, with Tua against the Niners. I was like, man, I feel for you, but I wouldn't want to do that either. But Brock I was expecting it from Brock. He looks small. He's the 7th round pick. He's a rookie. Every quarterback looks terrified on the field at a certain point. Not him. And that bodes. Maybe it'll change maybe it'll change in the playoffs, but I don't think it will.
And in my opinion, that's the difference with mobile quarterbacks. To me, mobile quarterbacks at sometimes are a little too, like when I say calm, I think they're a little too hyper in a way. Because exactly, you have the tendency to move. It's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. That's why a lot of times when you talk about mobile quarterbacks and the sacks, a lot of the sacks are on the quarterback itself instead of the offensive line.
Right. Now, some people will say Brock the last couple of weeks has been, leaving pockets that he shouldn't. Maybe. He's only started a few games. He still has to learn what to do in the NFL. But so far, I love his mobility, and it's why I think I missed on him. So I didn't really look as hard as I should have in his college tape. I watched him in training camp. You were there. I mean, there's not a lot of scramble opportunities. I just didn't know. I didn't realize he's this good of an athlete. And
I didn't either. Yeah.
His feet, dude, Bill Walsh would love this freaking guy, man. His footwork, just the quick feet in general, he would love this guy. I don't want to speak for a man who's passed away, but I just get the feeling you would love Brock Purdy.
Right. Like in training camp, I could sense the pocket presence. In my opinion, that was his number one skill. I thought that was his number one skill, but we never saw it because in training camp, you're not trying to go and improvise on plays. You're trying to hit the play given to you.
Right, and guys aren't literally trying to hit you, so you don't have to make anyone miss. He can make these dudes miss. It's crazy. Does it routinely. That spin out of the. I mean, he's like Kyler Murray with his first couple of steps, and he surprises people. He's like, "Oh, I'm gone." I'm like, where the hell did he go? He was right there.
Yeah,
he was right there a second ago.
And the funny thing, he didn't test well. He's not fast necessarily, but
he's got that 10-yard split. Who knew it would actually translate? I don't know. I just didn't see it when I was watching the Iowa State clips that I saw. I didn't realize he could be running around like this. It's very nice. And if you want, you got to have this in the NFL. You can't be a guy who's stuck in one spot unless you're Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. You got to be able to move around a little bit. Joe Montana could, Steve Young could, Jeff Garcia could. Jimmy couldn't, and it was one of the major limitations in his game. Brock can. It's a big difference between them.
I agree. We got a super chat here from Maynard Keenan. I'm legit scared about this game. Almost exact same position as last year. Swept the Rams, got taken out in the NFC Championship. What's your thoughts here?
I get it. I totally get it. I think a lot of Niner fans are thinking, oh, easy. Seahawks suck. It's a really well-coached team. You could argue that Pete's one of the best coaches in the league. He's a champion. He's right there with Andy Reid in terms of accomplishments. He's really freaking good, and he's a defensive coach. He's faced Kyle a lot of times. I mean, that being said, the Niners are just better. They have a better roster than the Seahawks.
Agreed.
So if they lose this game, it would be very, very, I mean, controversial wouldn't even begin. Like, all the goodwill that the Niners had built up in their 10-game winning streak would go away, and the knives would come out all offseason, which is there's so much pressure on the 49ers this week. There's no pressure on the Seahawks. That's another thing. But I fully expect the Niners to win this game. Fully.
Yeah.
They're way too good. It would have to be like multiple turnovers, which can happen. But it would have to be multiple turnovers. It would have to be a game like that. There's no way that Geno's just going to put it all together and dice them up. I just don't see it.
I do think the turnover battle plays the biggest difference. What I'll say, though, on the turnover battle, since Week 11 against the Arizona Cardinals, the 49ers have not lost the turnover battle. That's how good they've been. They're number one in turnover differential. They have not lost it in the last, 8 games, something like that.
Look, the Niners kicked the crap out of the Cardinals, and that makes everyone feel good, right? The defense showed up, but it was the Cardinals and David Blau and Trace McSorley. I keep going back to the Raider game, and how did that happen? It was the number one defense in the league, and you let Jarrett Stidham go for 350 and all those rushing yards. It's like, well, Geno Smith's a lot better than Jarrett Stidham. And he's got weapons too, and he's got a running back too. And I don't know, man. Like, I really am a little flabbergasted at what happened with the defense. Was it just a one-off, or is the defense leaking oil? Is this going to be something like? Are they going to make Geno Smith a legend this Saturday? I don't know, man. I don't know, because they made Jarrett Stidham a legend in my mind. What was that? Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, we'll see. We'll see this weekend. Yeah. Last topic of the day, something not necessarily related to the game, but something that came out today. All pros for the 49ers. They had 4. Kyle Juszczyk,
as picked by the players. This was
that is true. That is the new thing.
These are the official all pros. But this is a cool. It's interesting to see the players union pick their own awards. Go ahead.
But the 4, Kyle Juszczyk at fullback. You had Trent Williams left tackle, Nick Bosa edge rusher, and then Fred Warner at linebacker. Those were your 4. Thoughts? Did you think more would happen? Did you think less would happen? What do you think?
I think I still don't like that fullback is an all-pro position. No offense, he deserves it. But it's like, dude, there's 2 fullbacks in the league. What about a third wide receiver or a second tight end? And like nose tackle is a position, but nickel isn't. Like, what about nickel? Nickel's a much more important position. And so, I mean, Jimmy Ward could have been in the running for that. I'm just saying. Although I'm sure there's other good nickels too. But yeah, those are the 3. Juszczyk, I guess, because he's the only fullback in the league. Anyone else that would get some consideration? I still think Dre Greenlaw deserves consideration, but for whatever reason, no one agrees. I don't get that. I don't get that. I thought he had a better year than Fred Warner this year, and Warner's great, but I feel like Warner's a lot of reputation, and Greenlaw just came on the scene, and damn, he was great this year, and no one recognized it. No one said anything.
Yeah. To me, I do think Warner deserves it. The reason is
he does.
The thing is, Greenlaw, I don't think is that good. Like, I think the difference in the run game versus the difference in pass coverage is much bigger in the pass coverage part. I think Warner is a go for it.
I think they're good in coverage in different ways. Warner's great playing the deep middle in the field. It's really hard to throw over him. I get the impact, but Greenlaw just devours checkdowns. Once the Niners force the check down, it's like, but I mean, that's part of coverage too. That's to me, I would call that coverage. But I understand. For a linebacker, I think that's part of it, especially in zone. Like, if you're forcing checkdowns and someone has to get there and make sure that's a 3-yard gain and not an 11-yard gain. And I think you see the difference there between Azeez and him. That's all I would say. But yeah, straight up man-to-man coverage. Yeah.
I think Warner deserves the all-pro first team. I would probably put Greenlaw on second team. I do think Greenlaw was a top 4 linebacker this year. I think Roquan Smith's fair. I think he really blossomed in Baltimore. But to me, I thought that, honestly, I did not expect the players to do good. I thought the players would suck at this. I think they did a fairly good job. Now, the one that I'd say that really I think doesn't belong is Aaron Donald. He missed like half the year. I don't know.
See, that's what I'm feeling. I feel like it was a little bit of reputation. Like, the players a little bit like who they respect, and it's a little bit of what they've done in the past, not necessarily what they did this year, which is why I think there's still a role for writers to make these calls. I'm just saying. Theoretically, they should be less biased and less tied to the past. I saw DJ Reed came out and was a little upset, saying, players picking their buddies.
There's only
I
two
feel you.
cornerbacks. There's only two cornerbacks. I don't
That's
know.
ridiculous, man. There should be at least three corners and three wide receivers. This is freaking 2023. People,
Yeah.
fullbacks and nose tackles. Come on,
Oh boy.
come
yeah.
on.
Yeah. But to me, I
You should
think
have to make it as a tight end. I think H back.
maybe. Yeah.
I think.
I think Kittle gets it. Like to me, I thought Kittle at the Pro Bowl ranking. I thought Kittle was honestly on the fence. I would have potentially put Dallas. I think Kittle should have made it, but I think I would have definitely considered Dallas Goedert because Kittle had missed time. And
They gave it to Goddard.
No, they didn't. Kittle
Who'd
got
they give
the
it
All
to?
Pro and the Pro
he did.
Bowl. Yeah.
Okay.
But at the time, I thought that Goddard could have gotten it. Now I think it's 100% solidified Kittle. I don't think Talanoa Hufanga. I know a lot of people would talk about Hufanga. I don't think he should have been safety. Even at the Pro Bowl time, I didn't think he was a Pro Bowler. I thought that there were other better options at the Pro Bowl. McCaffrey, I know a lot of people question. I think Josh Jacobs though was the best running back. I don't think McCaffrey even makes it in second team. I think Nick Chubb probably makes it. But I thought that there was going to be a flex. I thought McCaffrey would have been the flex, but there's no flex.
Yeah, it seems like McCaffrey. Yeah, is so. Who are the running backs that made it?
Only one. There's only one.
One running back.
Yeah. There's two receivers and one running back.
Well, Nick Bosa himself said that Josh Jacobs is better than Christian McCaffrey. So I'll take Nick Bosa's word on it.
Yeah. But
McCaffrey's really good though. No offense to McCaffrey. I was against the trade, not because I didn't like him. I've met him. I like him. I like him as a guy. I like him as a pro. I like him as a running back. I'm looking forward to. I enjoy watching him play. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of his career. So I did feel like it was a whole lot to spend on a running back that wasn't going to help Jimmy Garoppolo win the Super Bowl because it's Jimmy. But now that Jimmy's out of the picture, that changes the whole equation. And wow, Brock Purdy, not only does he get the best out of Kittle, but he gets the best out of McCaffrey. People talk about the Niners elevating, real quick before I got to go, they talk about the Niners elevating Purdy's play, but is Purdy not elevating Kittle's play?
I think it's both.
It's both. It's freaking both. Which makes
he's putting it on target. No hospital
yeah.
balls. I haven't seen a hospital ball to Kittle
Nope.
since Purdy was here.
So it's not as simple as, the Niners are a great team. You can plug anyone in, they'll make them look good. No, that has not been the case. They tried that with Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, couldn't win. There's something. Yes, they're making the job very easy on Purdy, but he has taken the offense to another level. And if you notice it, no one on the offense will say it. I asked McGlinchey yesterday, has he elevated? And he kept trying to say yes without saying.
This is a new thing.
He's taken
McGlinchey, huh? Asking some questions.
McGlinchey's a really nice guy. He's very professional. So he would never let me know that I hurt his feelings or whatever. Plus I don't do that anymore. I made my point about Mike McGlinchey. He's a nice guy. Everyone has their opinion on him. What were we talking about? I forget.
Kittle, Purdy.
Kittle. Oh yeah. So I was asking McGlinchey, and he kept saying he would stop short of saying he's taken our offense to the next level. He'd be like, he's continued our offensive success. No, your offense is way better with Brock Purdy. And I think it's not that they don't want to give Brock his credit. It's just awkward because Jimmy's still on the team in the locker room. He was there yesterday. And if you say Brock's taking our offense to the next level, it's a shot at Jimmy, who they like. And that's another reason why Jimmy has to go next year, because you got to stop this situation where players in the locker room are afraid to hurt his feelings. Dude, just say that the offense is better with Purdy, because it is. I got to go.
That's perfect. Guys, that's Grant Cohn for y'all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will catch you guys next time.
Thanks for watching.